at home. We don't need no violence, got no time for all you radicals. Screw your status quo, we're not animals. I won't kneel for the anthem, cause the flag is what I'm standing for. In America, your freedom ain't free. In America, got soldiers dying overseas. So America, you say what we believe. My America, I won't ever take a knee. Our freedom is the reason you can disrespect our flag. If my stars and stripes offend you, then I'll help you back your bags.
Good evening, everybody out there on the interwebs, the YouTubes, and everywhere else you may be consuming this podcast. This is the Church and State Podcast, and I am your friendly neighborhood bearded weirdo, coming at you loud and proud as I always do, with this magnificence upon my face. And right here, sitting to the left, scratching his eyebrow,
Sorry,
the people's eyebrow.
No, it's not.
Scratching the eyebrow is my best friend, my brother, my compadre, the one, the only, the Pastor Gary Podosek. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, and before we go any further, happy birthday to you, brother.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's right, everybody. I've hit the 4-0. That's right. I hit it and I plowed right through it, and I'm going to...
I would say it's all downhill from here, but you've been going downhill for a while.
Well, it's the only way I can get forward motion. It's easier that way. I lay down and I roll and I go.
How do you think I'm going to plow through 80? I just got to start rolling down the hill now.
I'm going to keep going just as hard as I have the first 40 on the latter 40, and I ain't slowing down.
There you go. That's the way to look at it.
But guys, welcome. It is May 17th.
It is.
And man, I think we got a good one for you today. We're going to continue on in the American Values series, and we're going.
Yes.
Yes. I'm getting fingers.
Hand signals.
The hand signals. We are continuing on in the American Values. This is part 3, and we're going to talk about oaths,
Vows.
covenants.
Yes.
Oh my.
Not all the same, by the way, in case you're wondering.
No, they're not all the same. And we're going to talk about the importance of them and why they are an American value. Because I don't think that people really understand a lot with current things that are going on. The way that people just like to do things willy-nilly. That is not a good thing to do when trying to run a sovereign country or live in a sovereign country, that can't just do things willy-nilly. And you can't just leave it to, it'll happen, and if it happens, and whatever.
Well, and to be clear, we're not talking about like your wedding vows. Although there's something to be said about wedding vows, and yes, we believe they're important, and maybe the sanctity of marriage and all that. But we're really talking about vows as they relate to our American society. And,
Pledge allegiance?
well, no, not the Pledge of Allegiance, but just generally speaking, like there are things in this country that I think people have lost sight of and have forgotten as far as why America is what is the country it is, and it has to do with some vows and some sovereign oaths that we make as a citizenry. And if we don't make those vows and we don't make those oaths, we allow things to transpire, which leads to what we pretty much have going on today.
What? You don't like the way things are going today? I mean,
No, I'm just
come on, build back better. Nothing's built, nothing's back, and nothing's better.
Biden's back. That's about it.
My boyfriend's back, and we're gonna get in trouble.
No. No, none of those things. But I think you are correct in one understanding. I believe we are definitely in for something that is unique because, you know, a lot of the time it's easy to just go with the hot button subjects. Like, you know, it's easy to talk about the shootings. It's easy to talk about systemic racism. It's easy to talk about
Doesn't exist.
The abortion bills or hate speech or censorship or
It's
First Amendment rights.
I mean,
yeah, we've talked about these things on our previous.
And believe me, everybody that we follow and all the news networks, they're putting their own spin on it.
It's nothing new, and sadly, that's the case. That it's just stuff that has just resurfaced yet again, stuff that just shows up again.
Such a timely reason, but we're not going to.
But well, no, I'm not going conspiracy theory on it or anything like that. But
Get your tinfoil hats, people.
But I am saying that there's a very real reason why the things are happening, why these things do happen. And if we don't address those things, we don't think about them like from a source of, hey, by the way, did you know that a large portion of the drugs that exist in this country come over the border illegally and are distributed from the people who come through the border illegally. So when you're dealing with...
Oh, you mean those coyotes? Those coyotes, they're strapped to the coyote backs?
I'm not picking on an individual group of people. I'm not even specifying which border.
Well, they're not people, they're animals.
And I'm not even specifying... And if you realize, I didn't even specify our border.
True.
Right? I'm just specifying how there are a large portion of things that happen illegally, and when they transpire illegally and you don't set up the right protection mechanisms and you don't run through the process that is supposed to be run through, you end up participating or allowing things to transpire in your country that you go, well, later on, oh man, that was a bad idea. Why did we let that happen? Well, now that bill comes due and people don't want to pay the bill.
Oh, it's standard.
Yeah, and that's normal, but we can do something to protect that from being a large sum bill that we don't want to pay in the uprates of whatever the current debt that the American citizens are going to have to pay.
Oh, wait, but he says he's bringing down the debt wall.
You shut your mouth. You shut your mouth. You know darn well that we are in probably one of the worst recessions that we'll ever see. I would like to say it's...
well, Jimmy Carter's was the worst. And,
yeah,
well,
I think we might have the... I don't know. Well, let's hope not.
It depends on whose math you're using.
Well, literally, let's go this way. I hope that's not the case. However, things don't look good.
Well, I mean, inflation, 25 different food processing plants catching on fire and exploding. The largest milk producing company in the West Coast shutting down and being demolished down to the ground, and they're rebuilding something else there instead. Oh, you mean those things happening?
No, I wasn't saying any of those. I was just thinking about how everything.
That'll add to the inflation.
I was just going to say how everything's going to cost more strictly because gas costs more.
That too.
I mean.
So we need to get a cow?
No, we don't need a cow. Not yet. Don't have a
Actually, you
cow.
want a heifer.
So anyway, let's start, and I believe you have some cool stuff.
Well, you have we want to define those three things.
You want to go that route first?
Yeah, let's go with the definition of what is a vow, what is an oath, what is a covenant.
All right, so I got vow. We'll get to covenant later, because covenant is something a little bit different.
Yeah, vow.
I really want to focus on these two because I think, generally speaking, people don't have an understanding, right? And due to lack of understanding is usually where we allow things to transpire happen because we become ignorant. And not a conspiracy theory, but why do you think the school system has been dumbing down the education of your children for so long? Because if they're too stupid to realize they're being misled, they're easy to mislead.
And a side one to that one, if you don't think that that's possible, the Catholic Church did it to Europe forever. They kept the regular people from being able to read the Bible, and they just said, "Oh, this is the Word of God. You must do it." And they controlled them in that way. So if you don't think it works,
just look at your history.
Yep.
If you don't know your history,
Again,
you're going to repeat everything that happened in history because you're just not studying enough to learn about what happened. But I digress. So here we go. And this is Webster's 1828 dictionary. If you're not aware, we've talked about it.
Ever.
It is a real dictionary. It's not been tainted or readdressed by
no made-up words
by government officials who decided that the word no longer means that anymore because it offends people. So this is an untainted definition. I'll give you both definitions so you don't get squirmy about it. But a solemn promise made to God, or by a pagan to his deity. The Roman generals, when they went to war, sometimes made a vow that they would build a temple to some favorite deity if he would give them victory. A vow is a promise of something to be given or done hereafter. Definition 1. Definition 2, probably a more realistic definition. A person is constituted by a religious, or constituted a religious by taking three. Hold on, is that right? A person is constituted a religious by taking.
That's not the second.
No, that is. It's the second part of the first definition. I know what it says.
It's just commentary.
By taking three. Oh yeah, that's it. You're right. I'm sorry. You're correct. A solemn promise as the vows of unchangeable love and fidelity in a moral and religious sense. Vows are promises to God as they appeal to God. To witness their sincerity and the violation of them is a most heinous offense. Now, this is vow, right? And when you look at a vow, first of all, It doesn't matter whether or not you are a religious person. It doesn't matter whether you believe in God or not. The definition of vow points to God.
Yep.
So, I'll start this off.
As a noun.
If you do not validate the existence of God or belief of God or a higher power, I'll even allow you that.
Then why are you even making a vow?
You can't make a vow. By definition, you lack the ability to make a vow.
So
Because you have no form
Yep.
of governance over that vow. It would be the equivalent of promising on myself. Well, I'm very untrustworthy. If I lie, who's holding me accountable?
you.
Me. And if I say, well, it's the truth, does it sound familiar? I really honestly think that just sounded like CNN.
MSNBC.
The most reliable source of news.
Shoot, at
FYI.
times it still sounds like Fox.
Well, I mean, any of them. And it's just your generalized media sources. So we're the fact checkers of Facebook or whoever, right? Because who's checking them? Nobody. They're
Oh well, no,
nobody.
I check the fact checkers.
well,
and
yeah,
then
but
I get
you
told
check
I'm wrong.
you check the fact checkers, but the fact checkers check you and tell you you're wrong, and then put you in Facebook jail.
It's happened.
Personally,
It's happened.
I like the verb version of vow, which makes it
It's
a little
just
bit more succinct.
To
To
give.
give,
Yeah.
consecrate, or dedicate to God by solemn promise.
Right. It's the action of. So it's the making of a vow. All right. So that's vow, right? And in the same breath, we'll go to oath.
I got that one.
I got it too. So, a solemn affirmation or declaration made with an appeal to God for the truth of what is affirmed. The appeal to God in an oath implies that the person imprecates his vengeance and renounces his favor if the declaration is false or if the declaration is a promise. The person invokes the vengeance of God if he should fail to fulfill it. A false oath is perjury. This is what we currently, I mean, we just want to go there. Amber Heard is committing perjury. Why? Because she is under oath saying these things occurred, and guess what? They didn't occur.
There's no proof.
So anyway,
And she put her hand on a Bible,
which is typical process for most,
Oaths.
say most judges, call on that. But here's the thing: the oath is basically like it is the promise with the understanding that
if I'm wrong, God will be mad at
there's
me.
a penalty attached to it. All right, so take these two things in category, and now we're going to go into some detail with. You got all the weapons of warfare on that digital device.
Well,
right.
one more. What about covenant?
Well, now
we're gonna go to that
we're going to go to covenant later because
Okay.
covenant does deal with something different, and I don't want to press.
He doesn't want to muddy
I
the
don't
water.
want to press all the buttons at once because we're really focusing on the vow and the oath because, let's face it, going back to vow, you have a bunch of people who want to come in here and they want to say they want to become a nationalized citizen. Let's use that one. That's a good example, right?
Yes.
We're
have
talking
it right
about
on your phone.
we're
I
talking
have it
about
as well.
we're talking about people wanting to come here and come into the country. Well, when they come into the country, not many people know this, but there's a process. That process is that you go through legal immigration process.
There is a test. They have to go to a class. They have to learn some history.
Generally speaking, I'm not going through all the process. I don't.
But no, the last thing, when you are accepted and you're making the final decision on that day,
you make a vow.
no, you make an oath.
Or you make an oath. I'm
You
sorry,
make
you make
an
an
oath.
oath. Okay, which means there's a penalty, right? So it's the way to basically tell the new citizen who's coming into this country that, look, you are agreeing to these things, and if you don't, there's a consequence, okay? We are a country of laws. Whether you like
Yep.
it or not, we are. But the laws only matter if they're enforced. And if you don't enforce the laws, then the oath is inconsequential or unconsequential at this point. It no longer has consequence.
It has no longer
So
holds
the oath
merit.
is literally currently and I'll just use immigration as a basis, if you're just flooding in the border right now, which they are currently, just allowing people to walk across the border, and you're letting these people come in, and then you grant them amnesty without the process of legal immigration, okay? They don't take this oath. They do not understand what it means to become a naturalized citizen of this country. They're not also being held to the responses of
you
what
can't,
they
it's
call.
not, it's
You
not
can't
that
hold.
they're not. You
I
can't.
I can't legally hold them to it. And this is where I feel bad for these people, because they are coming over, fleeing a country that is oppressive, does not care about their lives, is horrible usually. Okay, they come here in that intrepidation and they flee, and they come here for safety, security, and the ability to prosper, because this is the most prosperous nation in the world. But then they don't have the ability to be held accountable like every other citizen in the country does. And then you wonder why you have the issues you have. They don't understand that there's a consequence if I go into the store and steal something that isn't mine and take it. Then they get arrested. Then they get arrested and then you complain about it like we've done something wrong. I feel bad for them because they're still under the law. They don't understand what they're in. They don't really understand, and that's why that process is so important.
And for those who may wonder why are we talking about this as an American value, if you don't remember from high school or grade school, whenever you learned about the Puritans and the Pilgrims and all them coming over here, came over on the Mayflower, landed on Plymouth Rock. Before they even set foot on what is now American soil, they drew up an oath. They drew up the Mayflower Compact.
Yep.
Now, I have it in a more modern English.
Thank you.
Because my sister was trying to read it earlier and got about 3 lines in, and the these, thous, thys, and whatevers were like worse than a tripping hazard.
your tongue twister for the
So I'm going to read this to you guys so that you can understand. This is foundational. This is something that they did, and you can see how, because of what they did, what this country has become. Have we failed in things? Yes, but the fact that this was the very foundation that this country started on, the first cornerstone of what was to become this country.
Right.
All right, and it says this: in the name of God, amen. We whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign Lord King James, by the grace of God, of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, King, defender of the faith, having undertaken for the glory of God an advancement of the Christian faith and the honor of our King and country, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia, do by these presents solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one another, covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic for our better ordering and preservation and furtherance of the ends of aforesaid, and by virtue hereof do enact, constitute, and frame such just and equal laws, ordinance, acts, constitutions, and offices from time to time as shall be thought most meet and convenient for the general good of the colony, unto which we promise all due submission and obedience.
Promise.
Right, they promise. In witness whereof we have hereunto subscribed our names at Cape Cod the 11th of November in the reign of our sovereign Lord King James of England, France, Ireland, the 18th, and of Scotland the 54th, Anno Domini 1620.
That was a vow. That's a vow. This was a promise that they were establishing something.
And mind you, they thought they were in Virginia, but they weren't. No. Anybody who knows, some winds took them in the wrong direction.
They didn't know where they were.
But and here's the thing about that. And this is kind of important too, because what a lot of people like to do is they like to go, oh, well, because they had it wrong, it makes it void. No, that's called a contract, ladies and gentlemen. Contracts are made void by any kind of disparaging differences. Promises ride over no matter what that is.
Yep.
Okay, promises, the promise that they made was what they were establishing and for what purpose they were establishing it.
And they signed that before even getting onto the land. And don't get me wrong, there was hardships. But at the same time, they were also blessed immensely.
Right.
The first peace treaty with Native Americans was done at Plymouth Rock. Conversions happened. They built a relationship until the grandson of that chieftain took over, and then he wanted to start a war. But I mean, hey, but that it wasn't due to racism. They wanted to build this. They wanted to go into that. So that was the very foundation of this country. A vow, a promise, an oath unto God that we are going to do this in such a manner as to please Him.
And there have been many other vows in the nation, in its establishment and its building, of things that we have decided as a country and as a whole. And
The Constitution.
Well, not just the Constitution, although that's an easy one to draw, right? But I can even go into something, let's say, a little bit more modern era, right? Like when we had 9/11 happen. As a nation, although, yes, the president at the time made the vow, the nation was united under that same vow. That vow of we would no longer stand by and allow another terrorist attack on American soil. That's a promise. Now, how do we uphold that promise?
No,
that means you have to do certain things in order to make.
Oh yeah,
you have to do certain things. And so when we have people who say, "Oh well, you can't look at Arab individuals or whatever that way, that's racist." Okay, I'm not.
I'm looking at their book that they've pledged allegiance to.
No, I'm not even talking about that.
God.
But there are things that can be done, and whether we like it or not, are done in the full vein of taking that vow very seriously. Unless people don't care. And if that's the case, then there's the problem. And I think that's where we have, this is about the values.
Well, people have lost, they've lost the ability to make a promise and keep it.
Well, that's it. You're right. That's exactly the point.
People say all the time, "Oh, I swear, I'll do it, I promise you.
But why? And that's the catch, right? And I don't want to go super biblical here, but I feel like it's kind of necessary.
Well, you're the pastor. I would kind of.
I know that, and I know that that's really like it's an easy vein for me to take, but I don't like shoveling it so heavy because there's a lot of things that we can talk about here, and I don't want it to just turn into a highly biblical.
Well, no, but I mean it is.
But this particular case, right? And we've already talked about it. When you're basing the promises off of oneself, and this particular case, when that vow was made, that 9/11 vow, this is why it really doesn't have value, because it wasn't made in the eyes of God. It was made
in the eyes of the American people.
It was made in the eyes of the people, of the populace. Honestly, I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody in this nation anymore. And there's a reason why. Because they have proven themselves to be untrustworthy, and their vows are hollow. Because they have disavowed God. And if they had not done so, they would still be, I would be able to hold them accountable, because I could say, to whom you are held accountable, you must then fulfill that obligation.
And to bring in the context, I mean, I believe it was, it's New Testament. I believe it was Paul. I could be wrong. It may have even been the words of Jesus. I'm horrible with addresses in the Bible. Okay, but there's a reason why that it's written in the Bible that do not swear anything. Let your yeas be yeas and your noes be noes. Because if you swear anything, you are held to it by God. The standard is God. And there's consequences that will come from God if you break that. So that's why they say, basically it comes down to don't make promises all willy-nilly. Don't say, "Oh yeah, I promise. Oh yeah, I swear." No. There needs to be a reverence here. There needs to be, and if you can't make that, just be honest. Let your yay be yay and your no be no. Pure and simple. But we've gotten to the point now where everybody wants to swear everything. Hold for the camera.
Go ahead.
All right. We've gotten to a point where people no longer, they just throw it around. Let's just get back to the point of just being honest. Be honest with ourselves. Be honest. Instead of trying to make everybody feel better and everybody happy, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Let your yeas be yeas and your noes be noes. Because you keep making these promises. You keep making these. How many times did my parents did it. Other parents have done it in the past. I know others have tried better than most to be like, they'll tell their kid, yeah, I promise we're going to do that, and then they don't do it. And or they promise, oh yeah, I'll make it to the next game. I'll make it to, I swear to you, I'll be at the next game.
See,
and they don't make it.
But even a swear or a promise, it's not the same thing because, again, the vow holds more weight.
Well, you're right, but I mean, you can't even keep a promise.
Well, yeah.
How are you going to keep a vow?
Right, but it's not even, can you? But I look at it as, that's more of a causation thing, right?
Exactly.
Your swears and your promises become hollow because you can't keep a vow because you've disavowed the one who holds you accountable.
Yep.
And so this is why this is so paramount and important.
And this is why I also laugh when people go, "Oh, America has nothing to do with God. It's a country." Well, this country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. Plain and simple, period. This country was founded on the fact that we believed that there was a creator, that he was the one true God, and that we were going to follow him as best we could, being humans who are fallible, to create this nation that could prosper under his name. And now we're not. And you wonder why we have the issues that we have, because we've walked away from that original oath, that original covenant, that original promise that was made on the Mayflower. We've walked away from that, and you wonder why things are going the way they are.
Well, I'll make it real simple. Name one other nation that's free.
None. Not truly.
That's fact. It's 100%.
Not truly. They say they are, but there are limitations.
What?
And or they can be taken away. Because, all right, well, here's the thing. They say they're free, but this is the only nation where our freedoms are stated that they come from God.
Correct.
Other
the
nations,
only one who can grant freedom.
Yeah. Other nations like Canada say the government's giving you freedom. Europe says the same thing. The government's giving you freedom. So if the government is saying that they gave you the freedom, then they can take it away.
And there might be other nations, small nations, they very well may exist, because I believe wholeheartedly there are other nations that are devout or devoted to God, and are where God is sovereign over their nation. However, the model to which America stands and is built upon liberty, and that liberty comes through God. If you don't acknowledge that, however, or if you don't acknowledge God at all, you really don't have freedom. And you go, oh well, Europe. Oh yeah. Well, what about England? They're free. No, they're not.
No, they're not.
They are subject to the Queen. If the Queen decides,
even though they're subject to the Parliament.
Even though Vampire Queen is still alive and probably will be for mortal, because there's no way you can kill a vampire. But
it'll stake through the heart, but you never get close enough to it.
If so happens that she does move on, that country is subject to the next ruler in line. Let's be clear. You don't have to travel far in history to go through England monarchs that were, bitterly cruel to their people.
Now, granted, at this point,
were they free? It's still the same ruler. It's still the same ruler.
Well, see, here's the thing. Now, granted, England for the most part has pushed away from the monarch. They have a prime minister. They have their huge parliament, which, mind you, I wish our Senate and House of Representatives could be like British Parliament, because
just have less of them.
Well,
win.
No. The reason why I say that is because they actually have fist fights in Parliament. And
I'm not even talking. But here's the thing. But just less people would be a start.
Well,
because you have way too many in there right now. It's way too many. They're not making anything happen.
Well, okay, you have
too many chefs in the kitchen. Does you get any meal cooked?
You have too many useless people in the.
But you still have too many chefs in the kitchen.
But
even if you had Gordon Ramsay
in order for there to be,
there's too many knives flying around. Okay?
In order for there to be equal representation, it's the only way that it could work.
I know. I'm just saying. I
understand that. I would like that, but then you'd have states who'd be like, "I don't have a representative," and we don't want that. Well, it's bad enough they want to add 2 more for DC.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
But
not going to change.
The Queen, the monarch, could still go, you know what? We're done.
Well, I mean,
we're done with this. You guys aren't running anything anymore.
How about China? How about China? Oh, China, they're super free, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lockdown status, and they're just beating people up and throwing them in trucks. That sounds free to me.
No, wait. They're free as long as they don't open their mouth against Xi Jinping.
Interesting. Even Israel, in their constitution, did not contribute their rights to God.
Mm-mm.
They contribute their rights to the United Nations in granting them their freedom.
I want you to understand.
And that's a dangerous thing.
I did not make that statement without knowing the answer.
Yeah, Israel had, in order for the UN to finally say that they were a country, they had to admit that the UN was giving them the country.
And here's the thing: there's a lot of reasons as to why nations are the way they are. And I'm not saying that people don't have, and some nations they have good intentions. And I don't think that every nation, there are nations that have rulers over them that are good rulers and they're helpful to the people. And there's nations that have great, ruling governments and stuff. That's not free, however, like this country is.
Yeah.
And if you don't acknowledge the difference between them, you're failing to understand what separates this nation from other nations.
And don't get me wrong, we've made mistakes, but you've also got to realize, see, for so long, people have forgotten that we're only a country 1776 is when we declared becoming our own country. We're not even 300 years old yet as a nation. You don't count the colony times because that was when we were still part of Britain. We're not even 300 years old yet. If you look back into history over what other countries were dealing with at like 300 years old,
yeah,
you're looking at the same problems. Now, they're different because, we've been even though we were the younger brother, we were the one with the biggest stick for so long. And now, some other countries hate us for that. And I agree, we need to stop, we need to get back to our own country and fix what we got before we start trying to help other people. But we have the freedoms that we have because we have acknowledged a creator since the inception of this country.
Right, and this is the best part about this. A vow is actually something that has to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You have to fulfill the obligation. And so, whether we like it or not, the vows that we've made in this country, I'm talking about from a biblical standard. Don't shake your head at me. I read my Bible. When you pay the vow, okay, you fulfill the obligation. When we've made these vows and we refuse to pay what we vowed that we would pay. Now, in this case, the promises we've made to God, whether it's in this particular case or any other particular case,
yeah,
you're still held to hold it. So here's what happens: if we do not pay that vow, we are not subject to be in guarantee form. This goes to the covenant, right? The contract. We become the ones who break that contract when we fail to pay what we promise. Under that guise, we are no longer technically able to call ourselves free. And I think that that's kind of the plot.
Oh, it's definitely the plot.
If you think about it, right? And we've talked about the naturalized citizen. We talked about
Well, I do actually have the oath that a naturalized citizen is supposed to.
Well, yeah, I have it here
I do
too.
want to read that as well.
But before we go into that, if we don't pay the vow and we break contract, we don't have the right to say that, oh, well, they need to make sure we stay free, or they need to make sure that we do X, Y, and Z. God, in this particular case, God gives us this freedom in this country as long as we continue to make that vow I shouldn't say pay the vow that we agreed that we would do when we formed this country, and when we continue to make these vows towards God. If we don't follow through, we set ourselves up for the ability for other nations, other countries, other people, insiders, whatever you want to call them, to come and rob and steal that freedom away.
But who pays for it if we don't?
That's the point, right? Because somebody will pay, right? That's the point. So here's the catch. We'll go to the naturalized citizen, because the oaths are really where this comes due. We set up things in this country through the form of an oath, which basically means there's a consequence attached. If you don't actually fulfill your oath, this is how we protect that payment process, right? Think of it as a transaction.
Yep.
I'm not saying that vows are transactions, but I want you to think of it as such for just the peace of God. If you go and you say, I'm going to take out a loan.
Yes.
Okay. They make you sign a deal, a contract. That's the covenant. Okay. That contract says that I'm going to pay X amount of dollars. You're giving me this much lump sum of money, but I have to pay it back in this many cycles, whatever.
In
this
this
much money.
time period, and this amount of interest.
In that, okay, there's basically in that contract, that constitution or that covenant that you're cutting with the bank, that contract, there's a vow and there's an oath. The vow is your promise. That's called promise to pay, right?
Yep.
You make a promise that I will pay this back in full by this many times.
Yep.
The oath is you agree to the terms that I'm going to pay this back, and if I don't, these are the consequences.
Yep.
Everybody knows that anybody who's ever taken a loan or a personal loan or a financial loan or whatever, or car loan or credit card.
Those credit
right?
guys, man.
You know all about this. So you're basically in the process of all three of these assets all at once every single time you're involved in this.
Yep.
But here's the catch. If you don't know what an oath is, you don't know what a vow is, and you don't understand what your contractual obligations are, and you treat them as just clinical things like this, you're not going to understand consequences. That's why we don't believe in bailouts. That's why I don't believe that GM should have been bailed out.
No,
Why?
none of them.
They needed to fail because
Yep.
if they
Oh, but the government
hold on.
says that they're too big to fail.
I don't care. There's no such thing. If
Yep.
you fail,
Agreed.
you pay your dues. There's a consequence for you failing, just like there is in everything. If I don't pay my credit card bills and they seize my car and my assets, that's because that's the contract. It's there.
Yep.
Plain as day.
Black and white.
Right? But we have become a nation that wants to remove consequences from people and take that away and break these oaths. And then we wonder why we have people running amok, thinking they can break laws, get away doing with whatever they want. This is the reason why. Because we don't allow the process to be actualized. We'll do the oath, right?
Yeah.
Okay? Naturalized citizen. You want to read it?
Yes, I will. And this is what, when people do it the right way, the day that they have, this is what I want. I want to now be a member of the citizen of the United States of America. This is what every citizen, every person has to say to do so.
In a room, by the way.
In a room full of people,
Yep.
with hands on Bibles, hand lifted high. All right, this is word for word. I hereby declare an oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty of whom which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Pause. I wish that there was more, but I want you to pause there. There is more, but
Yeah.
I want to pause there because there's so much to unpack. First of all,
You're renouncing.
you're
your old-
renouncing. What does that mean? That means I am no longer going to associate with, call as my homeland, whatever. Like, I don't care if you have dual citizenship, but if you're a citizen of the United States, your primary citizenship is United States. This
Well,
is
that's
why.
like, well, now mind you, it says that you will not any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty. In other words, people that sit there and call themselves an African American, you're not
No.
allowed to do that.
Wrong.
You're a citizen of the United States of America.
This is why, like, I don't mind knowing your
Heritage.
genealogy or your heritage, your culture.
But
Those
you're
things
not
are
a
all perfectly
something than
fine.
American. You're just American.
You're an American. That's the whole benefit to coming to this country. As you set foot on this soil, take this oath, you become an American citizen. You are just like every other citizen in the country.
American.
It does not matter where you came from or what you came from. You're here now, you're one of us. If you take this oath. If you don't, and now this is going into, well, you don't like, you have a problem with, let's just use the very more relevant one. You have a problem with Mexicans. Nope, don't. Love them. Great people.
Yep.
Hard workers. Think they're fantastic
Fantastic
people.
food.
Okay? Love their food. Love everything about their
I'm
culture.
sorry, I'm fat.
I have no
That's where I
problem
go.
with them at all. At all. As long as they come over the border legally.
And you wanna know
and
what's
they
funny?
do this oath.
Any person from a Latin country that has come into this country the right way and taken this oath, they hate people that are coming across illegally just as much as we do.
And on that note,
Because they went through the process, they
Right.
stood through the lines, they filled out the paperwork, they did the background
took this
checks,
oath.
and they took this oath, and it is so very important to them. People that came from Cuba and Mexico and all of those Latin
India.
American countries,
India, China,
people that came over from China,
Korea.
Yep. All of them.
Everything.
They hold it. Actually, the people that tend to take this oath, because those of us who were born here, we just automatically get this.
Yep.
We've already agreed to this because we were born here.
We're
But people
supposed to
that-
learn it in school.
But
you know.
people who come to this country and actually do, they tend to hold this country to a higher standard and this oath to a higher standard.
Right.
And they're what they're supposed to do in this country as a citizen to a higher standard than we do because we just take it for granted. They had to fight for it to get it.
And this is the other part, right? And it's super important. They'll defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States. If you don't come over here legally,
You don't have to defend it.
no, you don't have to defend it because you don't know it.
Right.
You don't.
And they don't like to teach it anymore. Or at least not in whole.
And this is where I go. This is that first generation of illegal immigrants that come over here, right? And I did say illegal. They are the ones that have the hardest problems. This is why I say I feel bad for them, because if they get amnesty and they're granted basically
They don't understand
legal
what's going on.
stay, they really don't understand their rights. They don't understand what they have. They don't understand what they can do. They don't understand anything. They don't really usually know the
And you know
language.
what's funny? Any of those people that when you sit down and you explain things to them, they totally dislike, without pulling in full politics on this, but they totally dislike one way of thinking because that's what they came out of.
Right. And then,
But that has to be explained to them first because they don't know it.
and that's kind of the governmental ploy in the whole basis of illegal immigration, is that if they don't know anything, you can tell them what you should do, and they think that that's what they should do.
Because you're giving them money. Ooh,
This
we're
is
giving you
how.
money.
This
Vote
is
this
this
way.
is the whole plan of the Democrat trying to bring over a large swath of illegal immigrants and tell them to vote Democrat, give them their T-shirts, their stickers, and voila, they get votes, right? Even
T-shirts and
but, and
stickers.
you can't check them for an ID because that's racist, and you
Kind
can't.
of amazing how they
but-
do end up being
Hold
red,
on,
though.
but hold on.
Once they learn,
This
once
is what
they
I'm saying.
learn.
They do it because they don't know any better and they don't understand.
And then
but
once somebody
that
explains
first
it to them,
generation, that first generation that's born here, they learn
yep.
and they get smarter
Yep.
and they learn quick.
And they go back to their
because
parents and tell them as
they'll
well.
come back and they'll tell their parents what this garbage is in their understood language, and they will tell them, "Oh, absolutely not. That's what we had back at home. Blah 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 blah. That's not what we do." And then they go, "Well, then you mean you want to vote for this guy over here in the red column?" And they go, "Oh yeah, that's who you want to vote for. That's what they stand for." Once they become more naturalized, they learn. So it's kind of like the never-ending cycle, but there's a problem. There's a limitation of the amount of land we have in this country, and there's a limitation of the amount of money this country has. And at the rate that they're blowing it now, more than God himself.
Wait. They'll just print more.
Stop it. I'm gonna beat you with your hat. So, all right, continue.
Alrighty. So, yeah.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I will bear arms on behalf of the United States when required
They
by
can't do
law.
that anymore. They want to ban guns.
That I will perform non-combat service in the armed forces of the United States when required by the law. That I will perform work of national importance under civilian direction when required by the law. And that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasions. So help me God.
Oh, there's that G word again. There's that G word.
In other words, layman's terms, I'm going to be a citizen of this country. I'm going to defend it. I'm going to honor it. And if I don't, strike me down now, God.
And I want to warn everybody right now, if you're not aware, this is the current oath that they have to take. I am not going to be shocked or surprised if God himself gets removed from this oath in the very near future. And go back to my original point. Remove God, you no longer have to hold anybody accountable to the standard that God sets.
Yep.
It becomes based on the United States.
Well,
It becomes based on
Well, see, here's the
current
thing.
president.
Here's the thing, though. It's not that they want to remove. Okay, they want to
No,
remove.
they do.
No. They want to remove the one true God.
Oh, they just
and they
do.
want to supplant it with
Let me ask
the
you this,
God
is that
of government.
No,
That's
they
what.
want their
Is
God.
that
Their
a
God.
big G or a little G at that end?
It's a big G.
It's a big G. It's a big,
Big
G.
G.
And here's the thing. And you're right.
Big G.
What they want to do, what they want to do is they want to replace God with themselves. That's why. And here's the thing. If you go to that oath, right? the very end, it says, "So help me God." There's an honor.
It's
in the
not.
Declaration.
It's not. So help me God. No, it's so help me God.
You're held to. So
Or,
help me.
may God have mercy on my soul if I break this.
I
is what that means.
want to translate the word "so help me God." Okay.
It's kind of equivalent to like a black mom when she's going to discipline a child.
No.
She's asking God to not beat that child to death. So help me God.
Hold on.
Actually, I got the so help me God. I will whoop your hind parts, so help me God.
All right. Hold on. Yes, you guys are kind of right, but here's the thing.
There's a severity to it.
I don't want to. I don't. I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Uh-oh.
Don't quote me.
One arm Pollock
Okay,
out on a limb.
stop. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty certain. It is a poor translation of what it really means. And I will tell you what I think it truly means. So strike me down.
That's what I said.
Yes. Because what it does, and again, go back to the whole concept of an oath, right? An oath contains what? A consequence.
Yep.
And what you are saying is, basically, this oath is made under the stipulation that if I am not going to stand and hold true to this oath, I am asking for the Almighty God Himself to strike me.
In other words, as it says in the last line of the
become
definition, it says the person invokes the vengeance of God
Correct.
if he should fail to
So,
fulfill it.
so help me God is literally so strike me down God, and we don't say. And here's the thing: this probably goes back a ways. I wouldn't know when exactly this probably changed, but you could probably find out when. But I guarantee you, it changed around at some point in time, probably in the like 70s or 80s, because God needed to be peace, man. God loves you. God cares about you. God isn't going to hurt you. He just wants to give you a giant hug and give you His warmth and all these good, wonderful things. Listen, read your Bible, and you show me where God does that.
Ananias and Sapphira.
Okay, just read your Bible. Jesus,
book of Acts.
look, Jesus was a kind, generous, caring individual.
Until you ticked him off.
Until you got under his skin, and if you were a money changer in the temple of God, he beat you with a rope and flipped the table. You may not like that truth, but it's true.
I was gonna say, you're right in the fact of calling it about like the 60s, 50s, like right around.
The peace, love movement.
Well, I was going to say
Anti-war
I'm not in
the anti-war movement.
It's the anti-war
because
movement. Yeah.
you had two generations. You had the parents. It was really interesting. If you go back and you look at it, you have the parents who
fought in World War II and Korea.
were all about honoring your vows, and then you had kids who were.
Camera back.
You have kids who were getting looped up into the anti-war movement, and they were deserters going to Canada. And there were people who were like really upset about that. Like it divided families.
Mm-hmm.
Like people were like, nope, not a son of mine, because they looked at it as they ran away from their vow. They ran away from their oath.
They betrayed their country.
That they made to their country. This is why when people if you go back into World War II, people who ran away from the front lines were shot by their own commanders.
Well, not even their commanders, just their
whoever, anybody.
Just anybody saw them running away.
Because they looked at it as they were dishonoring their vow.
Yeah, their promise that their military.
Not only just their military thing, but that
they broke it to God. They broke their oath to God.
But they broke their own countrymen's vow to their own nation.
And it really, you point out something which goes back to something that I think is profound, which is the understanding that this country, generally speaking, the persons of this country, okay, the people who call this nation their nation, who wear the American flag proudly, right, stand for the flag, kneel for the cross, right? Those kind of people, right?
I kneel for no man except for the man who died on the cross.
These people get mocked and ridiculed in this country, and in reality, those are the really only true Americans, in my opinion. And the reason why
you're right, because if you're not going to honor God, then you're not an American.
Well, it's not just that.
Period.
It's not just that. It's the I don't know whom you serve. And I'm pulling from the military thing that you were just saying a few minutes ago. It really didn't have to do with any other promises you made. It didn't have to do with the fact that you said, oh, I got your back, but then you turned around and you were running away like a coward, so I'm going to shoot you, right? No, it had to do with the fact that I can no longer trust you. You are no longer trustworthy.
There's a reason why that if you get a dishonorable discharge in our military, for whatever reason, you're not allowed to hold a governmental job anywhere in the country.
Right, because you
can't be trusted.
Right, and this is the thing. It's not that as a human being or as a person, you could not do things to earn that trust back. But if you do not have the accountability of God, which is, again,
we've talked character.
But we've talked about this over and over again. It's the whole concept of understanding of morals. You do not understand that you did wrong because you don't understand what wrong is. Because you lack the the righteous judge of good and evil in your life. You cannot make a direct decision that determines this is the right thing to do and this is the wrong thing to do. So you now look at the whole country as a whole. Look at your politicians. Look at our president. Look at the people in charge.
Nah.
These individuals who make decisions on behalf of the entire nation, okay? The entire nation, everything that we stand for, but they lack the accountability and the moral compass from the one true God, and they make promises. This is why I don't believe a single word he says out of his mouth. You could tell me till the cows come home how you're going to do X, Y, and Z. I don't believe you. Why?
Can you clarify whose mouth? Because you were pointing.
Any politician.
Thank you.
Not you. Sorry.
No. Yeah, thanks, man.
Any politician that does not represent God Almighty, and that might be a steep clause.
Well, no, it's not, because
I think that's the only clause, because you are representing this country on the firm basis that God is the center of this country.
When they take the oath of office, it's the same thing. At the end of that oath, it says, "So help me God."
And you're swearing on a Bible.
And you're swearing on a Bible. But I'm sorry. If you don't believe in God, but you're getting up there saying, hey, I swear to this, and being that I don't believe in, I'm going to do this, and you...
So I'm going to go there. Every single person who votes in favor of aborting babies up to and including birth, don't ever tell me how much you love God, believe in God. I don't want to hear a word out of your mouth. You're a liar.
Yep.
Period. I don't care. I don't care. I'll call it. So if you are a governor of a state and you make laws that allow or permit that to happen, I'm sorry. You do not understand
you going to
what
church
this country stands for, and you are not held to the moral compass and standards that God says.
Held to it. They don't even have it.
Hold on.
They didn't buy it.
But that God says this is indeed a life, and that what you are committing is an atrocity.
But science.
I will hurt you with that hat. I don't care if it's your birthday or not. I will smash that hat on your
I'm just saying what they say. I don't agree with it. They say, but science. And I hate to say it, the more you look into science, the more you find God's fingerprint in all of it.
Right. But the point of my pointing out of the point of me pointing out the hypocrisy that is the current government and the people that are in their offices of power, governors, senators, representatives, presidents,
let's not
vice
forget the
presidents,
unvoted ones,
right?
like Fauci.
Look, and even people who are appointed positions, right? They are responsible to make sure this nation stands for God.
God bless Rand Paul.
Okay, if you are not somebody,
all talk, no action.
But if you are not somebody who can stand on the Word of God and go, that's my God, and I'm choosing to follow what He says, and the promises I make are to Him, the oaths that I make are to Him, the vows that I make are to Him, with the benefit of this country, then we have nothing in common.
Can we talk about this for a second, since we were talking about oaths and stuff like that? And well, I just said, God bless Rand Paul, and you said all talk, no action. Well, let's think about this for a second. So the politicians take an oath before God, right? To represent the interests of the people, right? The politicians are accountable unto the people, okay? So what Rand Paul, like,
do you not see the problem?
There is a limited, there is power that they have, yes, but there is a limited amount of power. And especially when you don't have
here's
more
the thing.
people behind you.
Rand Paul, don't get me wrong, I love what he does. I love watching him verbally and mentally slaughtering
So my
people
question is he not doing his job
No, he's not.
by bringing attention to this for his constituents to raise their voices about this?
He's doing the minimum.
He's
doing the minimum because even though
he's
a senator, is he senator?
You say that he is minimally.
He is senator. He is a senator.
Fulfilling his oath.
Right now in the Senate we have a 50-50 split.
Okay.
Okay. Now granted,
this is a good talking point.
We have a 50-50 split. And he's on a lot of different councils or committees and stuff. Okay? And he does, like I said, he does a very good job of verbally and mentally slaughtering people that are sitting before him when it's things about the country. But I've never seen him once propose anything to do, because as being in that committee, he could go, all right, that's it. Go do your job, FBI. Go do your job, this organization, or whatever, to go after these people. He's not doing it. Number one, we know they're not doing it because the FBI doesn't care, because the FBI is its own Gestapo that just wants to follow the left-leaning crap.
Well, hold on.
But that's a whole other thing.
Hold on, stay on.
All right.
Oaths.
Striking.
Look, I know I'm probably on a list somewhere and I don't care. Hi.
Stay on oath. So we're talking about Rand Paul.
Yeah, Rand Paul
fulfilling his oath.
He's not fulfilling his oath.
Okay.
Because verbally speaking, he's defending the Constitution.
Right.
I feel like
action-wise, he's not doing enough.
I feel like he could do more. But
he's doing very minuscule.
But I do feel like he is fulfilling his oath, because his oath is to represent his constituents.
I'm gonna throw the curveball here, and this is where I think it gets tricky, right? Here's the biggest problem. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about, and it all comes together. If you're not paying attention to how all the pieces fit, here, I'll explain. Every person naturalized as a citizen of this country makes this oath, or is born into this country with the understanding they were educated to the understanding of what they were born into, and the Constitution, and what their freedoms are, and what they are endowed to by God, right? That pretext means that you have a fundamental understanding and belief of the one true God.
Yep.
That being said, that comes along with morals and judgment. Those morals and judgments allow you to have the ability to elect a representative. That representative is supposed to represent the common interest of the whole, or as much of the whole as possible. When you have a country as divided as this country is, the problem becomes is that you have a people or a populace that are as divided as the constituents that represent them. Rand Paul and others like Rand Paul represent a small minority of a group of people, their constituents, that they do obviously, yes, make an oath to represent them. However, they do have a responsibility to also stand for the Constitution and represent their constituency and their seat in the House
or Senate,
or in the Senate, according to these very much same vows that citizens make. Mm-hmm. So, or as a very naturalized citizen. That's why you cannot be a president of the United States if you are not a natural citizen of the United States.
You have to be born in the United States. You can be a senator or a governor, but you can't be
hence
a
the
president.
Schwarzenegger, the governor.
The
right?
governor.
All right. So here's the point, right? And what does this all come together? In the sense, you are correct. He is fulfilling his oath. However, he is not, in my opinion, standing up correctly and advocating for the moral rights of the people. And that's where you're correct. There's this ambiguity because, and again, it goes, this is very much like Manchin, right? Joe Manchin, Democrat,
At least he's standing for something.
Is fighting against his own party. He's becoming ostracized. He now knows what it means to be a Republican. Come on over.
It's the truth.
We're much nicer.
Here's a guy who's a Democrat, okay, who but knows that his constituency is mostly conservative.
But it's not even about that. It has to.
And he's standing for the Constitution as well.
It has to do with what's right. He understands,
and he says that.
He understands what's morally right. And that's where the difference is. If you're going to point between Rand Paul and Manchin, yes, Rand Paul makes a lot of static on there, and he gets up and...
Great show. It's entertaining.
And it's entertaining as snot. But Manchin quietly turns around and says, no, and this is why. It's not right. Period. End of discussion.
Well, that's
and in order to make that stance, you know what you have to know?
God.
You have to know God, and you have to know the difference between right and wrong.
Yep.
Period.
And so many of all politicians. Listen. Yes, we pick on the Democrats. It's fun.
On both sides of the
party.
I don't
but
care.
that was McConnell. McConnell is so wishy-washy. I don't even think he knows what end is up.
You do understand when I called out those people who support or are in favor of late-term abortions.
Oh, there's Republicans that are in there.
I didn't specify party.
Oh yeah, I know.
A majority of them are Democrat. That's fact.
But then you get people like Mitch McConnell that want to give it to
If you have an R next to your name and you're one of those people, you're in the wagon too. Your moral compass is so screwed up.
We call those rhinos.
Well, no, I'm just calling you out for what you are. You can't claim that you understand what this country stands for, and you're going to fight for the freedom and liberty of this country when you deny the power of God.
I made a video earlier this week, or maybe it was last week on TikTok.
Sorry, actually, I'm not sorry at all.
I'm on TikTok. I made a video talking about this whole Roe v. Wade and all this sort of stuff. And I had an interesting question. A person came up and said, "What do you do with teen pregnancies? What do you do with what's to be done for one night stand teen pregnancies? They make a mistake and now they're pregnant." And I said, honestly, it comes down to the parents. Parents have to teach their kids that we all have free will. Teenagers are stupid, but if you're going to be stupid, be smart about it. Wear protection and stuff like that. And I had a really good conversation with this person. I'm going to tell you that this person was most likely a liberal with the way the conversation was going. But at least we were able to find common ground. And they're like, you know what? There is a right to life. Everything has a right to life. And if you don't believe in a God, you don't believe that everything has a right to life. That's the fact. If you can find the three main things that our entire Constitution is based off of is written in our Declaration of Independence. And there's the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yep. And you have the right to life. That baby that is conceived in your womb has the right to life.
And tonight
they have it not because you give it to them, not because the government gives it to them, but because God has ordained it so. And if you don't believe in God,
and in that you mentioned
quickly to covenant.
Well, no, we're
already in an hour.
So, but the biggest thing, though, you just said it though, was the fact that in that same thing, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, liberty, bibbity. You have liberty because of God, and it's right there in the Declaration of Independence. Your independence, your freedom, is based out of this.
These things were given to us.
If we can't understand the whole concept of what this nation was foundationally built on, your freedom, the rights you have, the oaths we keep, the vows we make, the oaths that we keep, all stand under one context, and that is, you know who God is, the one true God, and you acknowledge Him. Listen, if you're from a foreign nation, you have the freedom in this country. You have the freedom to be in that religious practice or whatever it is here. But there's still a basis of understanding that the governor of this entire nation is God.
Yep.
Period. End of discussion.
Well, guys, I hope this has been informative. I really do. Huh?
At least that.
At least that. As we've always stated since the beginning in the conception of this podcast, is that we want to give you the facts, we want to give you the information, so that you're on a level playing field. What you do with it after we give it to you is what you do with it. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, I would hope you would make the right decisions and you would come to the right conclusions. But, like we just said, you have the liberty to come up with other conclusions. Okay, so, that all being said, in 2 weeks we will have part 4 of the American values. I don't have the list in front of me to tell you what it is, but there is a part 4. Okay? Sure. There will be one in 2 weeks.
Unless something else crazy.
Unless something comes up and then we'll pop it in there, which happened 2 weeks ago. But to catch me and everything that I got going on, look, I'm in the link tree. I've got a link tree. You click on that, you can see the YouTube, you can see my TikToks, you can see PBW, which I'm a part of. You can get all that information. That's on my link tree, so you just clicky and go where you want to go. My brother over here.
And I do want to say, I do have Twitter still. I didn't get rid of Twitter.
But we haven't been giving it.
No, we have it. But it's because it was being
Anyway, the easiest
But now
way.
it's going to be along Elon. So
Well, no, first he's got to find out how many bots are there. Okay, anyway, a different subject.
When we get to that point, I'll put my Twitter back up there.
Anyway, my brother over here, the easiest way to get a hold of him is go to www.streamsoflife.com. And you click on it, and you can email him. You can listen to all past messages. This past Sunday was a really good one.
Thank you.
I'm not going to tell you what it is. Click on it and find out. Shush, we ain't got time. Anyway,
The corner.
And if by chance you happen to be in southern New Jersey on a Sunday morning and you would like to come worship with us, you go onto that website, you can find our address, and come on out. We will welcome you with open arms, and we will gladly praise God with you and pray for you and love to meet you.
Amen.
So I thank you guys for meeting with us on a corner of church and state where there is no separation, and I look forward to having another conversation on the stoop. So to you and yours, I pray blessings, and I hope you have a good one.
God bless.
Peace.
In America, your freedom ain't free. In America, got soldiers dying overseas. So